The Galactic Council chamber was silent. Admiral Crix of the Zereth Dominion had just finished his report, his scaled hands trembling slightly as he played back the footage. The counselors, tall multi-limbed beings of the Valari Imperium, the gelatinous brains of the Rilnoth Collective, the chitin-clad warriors of the Zelvar clans, watched in stunned silence as the impossible unfolded before them. On the massive central holoscreen, a battlefield stretched across the war-torn plains of Argos. Veen alien troops clashed in fire and fury, plasma bolts streaking through the charred sky. And then, they arrived. Humans. But not just any humans. They were old. Not the cybernetically enhanced young warriors that the galaxy had come to fear. Not the genetically modified super soldiers engineered for efficiency. These were men with gray hair, deep-lined faces, scars that told stories of forgotten wars. They moved with precision, their battered armor looking out of place in the high-tech carnage. Their weapons weren't sleek plasma rifles but projectile-based slug throwers, outdated, primitive, and yet devastatingly effective. The footage showed one of them, a towering man with a jagged scar down one side of his face, barking orders in a guttural, battle-worn voice. His unit responded with ruthless efficiency, moving like phantoms through the smoke, cutting down Zelvar shock troopers with calculated precision. The counselors exchanged uneasy glances. The war against humanity had been dragging on for decades. Every species in the council had thrown their might against Earth's forces, hoping to subdue the upstart race before they could grow too strong. And yet, despite their best efforts, despite the relentless campaigns, humanity refused to die. And now this. Who are they? Counselor Velzon of the Valari rasped, his voice clicking unnaturally through his translator. These aged warriors? Admiral Crix exhaled through his nostrils, the ridges of his snout flaring. They call themselves the Forgotten Battalion. Silence. Then laughter. Cold, bitter, humorless. Impossible, scoffed General Xytok of the Zelvar clans, his mandibles twitching in irritation. The Forgotten Battalion is a myth. A human legend about soldiers who were abandoned during the First Terran Wars. Ghost stories? Admiral Crix turned the holoscreen off and met Xytok's gaze. Then tell me, General, how do you explain them cutting through our best warriors like they were children? No answer. The council chamber trembled slightly as a distant explosion rocked the space station. The war was far from over. And if these humans had truly returned, the galaxy was about to learn why humanity was never meant to be underestimated. #### 2 days earlier, the Warzone of Argos V. Sergeant Victor Kane watched the horizon burn. The sky was a swirling mess of fire and smoke, artillery rounds hammering the distant ridgeline. The younger troops, kids really, moved with nervous energy, checking their gear, exchanging quick, panicked glances. They had the best weapons, the most advanced tech, but no experience. Victor and his men, though? They had nothing but experience. They weren't supposed to be here. Officially, the Forgotten Battalion didn't exist. They were relics of a war fought long ago, left behind when Earth's forces retreated, presumed dead, erased from the history books. But they had survived. They had fought. And now they were back. Victor adjusted his battered chest plate, the old UNF insignia barely visible beneath the scratches and dried blood. His rifle, an ancient but well-maintained Gauss repeater, hummed softly in his hands. He glanced at his second-in-command, Lieutenant Darius Holt, who was rolling a cigar between his fingers with the same calm indifference he always had before a battle. "They think we're ghosts, Vic," Holt muttered, lighting up. "Let's show them what kind of ghosts we are." Victor smirked. "Damn right." The younger soldiers looked at them with curiosity, some with awe, others with doubt. These old men, battle-worn and weary, weren't part of the grand war machine. They weren't enhanced, weren't augmented. They were just human. And that was the most dangerous thing of all. A distant horn blared, ***, the enemy was coming, ***. Victor turned to his squad. "No speeches. No bullshit. You know what to do." The veterans of the Forgotten Battalion didn't nod. Didn't chant. Didn't perform any dramatic pre-battle rituals. They just locked and loaded. Because war was their ritual. And this battlefield was their home. The enemy came in waves, Zelvar berserkers leading the charge, their chitin armor gleaming under the blood-red sky. Plasma bolts rained down, vaporizing dirt, sending bodies flying. The young human soldiers took cover, their advanced shields flickering under the onslaught. But the old soldiers? They moved forward. Victor sighted down his rifle, squeezed the trigger. A Zelvar warrior's skull exploded in a spray of blue mist. To his left, Holt fired off 3 rapid shots, dropping an enemy officer before he could even bark an order. No wasted movement. No hesitation. Each shot was a kill. The younger troops hesitated, watching, learning. And then something clicked. They stopped relying on their tech. Stopped playing by the rules of modern warfare. They fought like humans. The Zelvar didn't understand. Their strategy was built around countering modern human tactics, targeting command hubs, overwhelming AI-driven defense grids. But these old men fought dirty. They used cover, set ambushes, lured enemies into choke points. They fought like warriors who had nothing to lose. Because they didn't. And as the battle raged on, the enemy forces began to falter. The young soldiers of Earth, once overwhelmed and uncertain, now fought with renewed confidence, following the lead of their forgotten ancestors. By nightfall the battlefield was theirs. And the forgotten battalion stood among the ruins, watching the stars as the Galactic Council's fleets retreated. Victor Kane exhaled, his breath misting in the cold night air. The war wasn't over. But this was just the beginning. The after-battle silence was unsettling. The younger soldiers sat in small clusters around flickering campfires, their advanced battle armor smeared with blood, both alien and human. The distant crackling of burning wreckage filled the air, a grim reminder that this victory had been costly. But for the men of the forgotten battalion, this was just another night. Sergeant Victor Kane stood at the edge of the battlefield, his tired eyes scanning the darkened plains of Argos V. He could hear the faint hum of Zelvar dropships in the distance, no doubt regrouping after their humiliating defeat. They would be back. They always came back. A sharp cough to his right pulled him from his thoughts. Still thinking like an officer, Vic? Victor turned to see Darius Holt, his second in command, leaning against a piece of smoldering debris, a half-smoked cigar between his teeth. His rifle was slung casually over his shoulder, but the way his fingers rested near the trigger showed he was still ready. Old habits, Victor muttered. Holt chuckled. Yeah, well, habits keep us alive. He exhaled a plume of smoke, watching the sky. We shook them today, but that was just the first round. You know how these bastards work. They don't like losing. Victor nodded. You did know. The Galactic Council's war machine was vast, far bigger than humanity's. The only reason Earth had survived this long was sheer stubbornness and brutality. The younger generations had adapted to modern warfare, relying on advanced battle systems and AI-assisted tactics. They had forgotten what it meant to fight like animals, to claw, to bite, to do whatever it took to win. The forgotten battalion hadn't forgotten. And that's what made them dangerous. The enemy regroups. Aboard the GSS Vindicator, a Galactic Council war cruiser orbiting Argos V, the mood was grim. Admiral Crix of the Zareth Dominion sat stiffly at the war table, watching the battle footage for the third time. Around him, Zelvar generals clicked their mandibles in frustration, while the gelatinous Rilnoth representatives pulsed in agitation. It made no sense. Humanity was supposed to be on the back foot. Their best warriors were cybernetically enhanced, genetically modified. The forgotten battalion were relics. Men without enhancements, without modifications, relying on crude weapons and outdated tactics. Yet they had carved through their best legions like they were nothing. Unacceptable, General XY spat, his four-clawed arms flexing. These humans should have been eradicated cycles ago. How is it possible that old, unmodified warriors are outperforming our finest? Silence. Then Councillor Velzon of the Valari Imperium leaned forward, her eyeless face shifting under the dim lights. Because, she said slowly, we miscalculated. Admiral Crix exhaled. He had come to the same conclusion. The Council had assumed that humanity's strength lay in its technology. They had fought the Terrans like they would fight any other advanced species. ***, jamming their AI, targeting their infrastructure, crippling their fleets ***. But these old warriors weren't relying on tech. They were relying on instincts. And instincts couldn't be hacked. Velzon continued, her voice eerily calm. The humans fight differently when they are desperate. These forgotten soldiers, they do not fear death. And a soldier who does not fear death is the most dangerous kind. Admiral Crix clenched his jaw. Then we need to change tactics. General XY mandibles twitched. We burn them from orbit. Velzon tilted her head. And make martyrs of them? XY hesitated. The last thing the Council needed was to fuel humanity's legendary resilience. Every time they had tried to break the Terrans through overwhelming force, they had only grown more dangerous. We need to break them psychologically, Velzon continued. We need them to fear us. Admiral Crix's eyes narrowed. How? Velzon's tendrils curled as she smiled. We take something from them. Something that even hardened old soldiers still hold dear. ####. The retaliation begins. The attack came at dawn. Victor Kane was up before the others, watching the horizon, just as he had done for the past 30 years. Something about this morning felt wrong. The air was too still. The usual distant sounds of retreating enemy patrols had gone silent. Even the younger troops, who had learned to sleep through artillery fire, were stirring uneasily. And then, it happened. The sky erupted in streaks of fire. Orbital bombardment. Move! Victor roared, already sprinting toward cover. The ground split apart as plasma rounds slammed into the encampment. Explosions tore through the makeshift barricades, sending bodies flying. Screams echoed across the war-torn field as young soldiers scrambled for weapons, trying to return fire, but there was nothing to shoot at. This wasn't an invasion. This was a massacre. Victor hit the dirt as another explosion roared overhead, his heart hammering. He had seen orbital strikes before. He knew exactly what this was. Precision bombing, targeting infrastructure and command centers. But why? If the Council wanted the planet, they would have sent ground forces. This was something else. And then it hit him. They're not trying to win the war. Holt crawled beside him, blood streaking down his face. What the hell are you talking about? Victor clenched his fists. They're trying to kill us specifically. The Forgotten Battalion. Holt cursed. Son of a bitch. The Council had realized the truth. The young troops could be broken. But the old soldiers? They were the ones keeping the war alive. And now the Council wanted to erase them from history. Victor scanned the chaos. His men were already adapting, pulling the wounded into cover, rallying the young troops. But they were outmatched. They weren't fighting an army anymore. They were fighting the full weight of the Galactic Council itself. A piercing sound tore through the sky, and Victor turned just in time to see the second wave coming. Drop pods. Hundreds of them. Each filled with elite kill squads. The war had changed. This was no longer a battle for survival. It was an execution. Victor tightened his grip on his rifle, his old bones screaming in protest. Fine. Let them come. The Forgotten Battalion had been left behind once before. This time they would make damn sure the galaxy remembered them. Forever. Victor Kane knew what this was. A purge. They weren't trying to conquer Argos V anymore. They were trying to erase the Forgotten Battalion from existence. And they were doing a damn good job of it. The orbital bombardment had reduced most of their encampment to molten slag. The young soldiers, who had fought so bravely the day before, were now scrambling, disoriented, out of their depth. Meanwhile, the Council's kill squads were descending like a plague of locusts, hundreds of drop pods slamming into the ground, hissing open to unleash precision-trained exterminators. Victor had fought these kinds of soldiers before. Assassins. Not warriors. Not grunts. Hunters. The Council wasn't throwing an army at them this time. No overwhelming force, no grand battlefield engagement. This was personal. They were sending in their best to hunt down every last veteran, to make sure no one walked away from this fight. But they had made a mistake. They thought old meant weak. Victor pulled his rifle tight against his shoulder, eyes cold and focused as he watched the first squad approach. They moved with terrifying efficiency. ***, black armor, no insignia, no wasted movements, ***, silent. They didn't talk. Didn't hesitate. They were here to kill, nothing more. Victor exhaled slowly. Good. It meant he didn't have to feel bad about what he was about to do. ####, a kill zone of their own making. The first squad moved through the burning wreckage, their visors sweeping for movement. They had no idea they were being watched. Victor and Holt crouched behind the remains of a ruined transport, breathing slow, keeping their profiles low. The younger soldiers were scattered, fighting in pockets, but the old men had regrouped. And they were about to remind the galaxy why you never, ever corner a war dog. Victor tapped his fingers against the side of his rifle. ***, a signal, ***. Holt grinned. The trap was set. A single shot rang out from a distant sniper position. The lead assassin dropped instantly, a hole punched clean through the weak point in his helmet. The others reacted fast, fanning out, diving into cover. Too late. The Forgotten Battalion had already adapted. In a flash they weren't prey anymore. They were the hunters. Victor and Holt rose together, moving in perfect synchronization. Their slug rifles barked, sending high-velocity rounds smashing through armor. A second assassin crumpled, his head snapping back as a .50 caliber round turned his skull into mist. The enemy squad leader barely had time to react before Holt was on him, slamming a combat knife into the soft joint between his neck and shoulder, twisting deep. The assassin gurgled. Holt leaned in close, whispering, "Too slow, kid." He ripped the blade free. The rest of the assassins tried to retreat, but they had made a critical mistake. They had landed in the middle of a battlefield that belonged to men who had been fighting for decades. Every ruined vehicle, every crater, every abandoned trench, it wasn't just wreckage. It was terrain. And the old soldiers knew how to use it. From the shadows, from the broken remains of their camp, the forgotten battalion struck. Bullets, knives, bare hands. No fancy energy shields. No AI assistance. Just brutality, precision, and pure human stubbornness. By the time the last assassin fell, their elite squad had been wiped out in under 3 minutes. Victor stepped over a twitching corpse, reloading with practiced ease. He turned to Holt. "How many more waves?" Holt wiped blood from his knife. "Too many." They both knew it. This was just the first drop. More would come. And sooner or later they'd run out of bullets. ##### The Council tightens the noose. Aboard the GSS Vindicator, Admiral Crix watched in growing frustration as his kill teams were systematically torn apart. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. They had expected resistance, yes, but not this. Not a perfectly executed counterattack from a group of obsolete warriors. Unacceptable, General XY snarled. How are they still fighting? Counselor Velzon, as always, remained unnervingly calm. "They are human," she said simply. "They fight best when they have no options left." Crix clenched his fists. "Then we remove their options." A new order was transmitted. Phase 2. The sky over Argos V turned black. At first, the soldiers on the ground didn't understand what was happening. Then the air started to shimmer. The Council had deployed atmospheric suppression fields, high-orbit satellites designed to cut off communication, disable electronic targeting systems, and most importantly, choke off oxygen. Holt coughed, spitting into the dirt. "Well, that's new." Victor pulled his rebreather from his pack and strapped it on. His men did the same. But the younger troops? They panicked. The suits they wore relied on oxygen filtration tech that was now shut down. And just like that, the Council had played their deadliest hand. They weren't going to win the fight. They were going to suffocate them to death. #### No retreat. No surrender ***. Victor Kane looked at his men, his old, battle-worn brothers. They all knew what was happening. They had been left to die before. And now it was happening again. Holt coughed again, looking at him. "So what's the plan, Vic?" Victor exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of his rifle in his hands. This wasn't just a fight for survival anymore. It wasn't about holding the line. It wasn't about winning. This was about sending a message. A final, bloody, unforgettable message. They might not survive this war. But they'd make damn sure the galaxy never forgot their names. Victor chambered around. "Plan's simple." Holt grinned. "We remind the galaxy why you never count a human out." And with that, the forgotten battalion charged into the darkness one last time. The air was thinning. Victor Kane could feel it with every breath, each one a little harder to take in, each movement a little heavier. The Council suppression fields were working, slowly choking the battlefield of breathable oxygen. But it wasn't fast enough. Not before they took a few more bastards down with them. The forgotten battalion had made their choice. There would be no surrender. No slow, quiet death, gasping for breath in the dirt. If this was where they died, then by God they would go out roaring. Victor and Holt stood at the center of what was left of their forces. Less than 24 old war dogs, all battered, bruised, and out of options. The younger soldiers were already succumbing. Their reliance on high-tech life support systems had betrayed them, leaving them gasping on the ground. Some had already passed out, others were staggering, coughing, barely able to hold their rifles. They were good kids. Brave. But they weren't built for this. This was a fight for monsters. For men who had lived too long in the abyss.